Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, René Barnett.
Glenn, whoops, there we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Night Vision. This is going to be a very special edition. We're doing something a little different tonight. I want to say welcome to any of the fans of Human Ascension with Ellie, because we've invited you to stay over because Ellie is my guest tonight, and we're going to continue the discussion on her show, which I believe the title is The ETs That Will Rule Our World. So if you're watching this later, after this has already been recorded at some point, I would suggest you go and first watch and listen to Human Ascension with Ellie. That episode again is The ETs That Will Rule Our World. Listen to that first, and then come and listen to Night Vision or watch Night Vision. And if you're live, welcome. So glad that you're here, and I hope you'll come back again. But I'm going to not waste any time at all because we've got tons to talk about. And I will bring Ellie on, and we'll just do a little encapsulation of what we're talking about, just in case people are just tuning in and have no idea. But first of all, let me bring Ellie. Hey, Ellie.
Hey, Renee. How's it going?
It's good. I'm so excited to have you on. As you know, I've been wanting to do this, the little handover situation where we continue on a subject matter. And I was just telling Ellie off camera that I don't know how she does it, how, she just sits and does all this to camera. I could never do that. I need someone else, to play off of. I can't imagine myself giving an hour-long, presentation every week. It just, it wouldn't be good for you guys. So, so I will have mercy on you, and I'll leave that to Ellie. But so Ellie, that title is pretty ominous sounding for those who haven't been following Human Ascension with Ellie. And also you've been talking about it on your YouTube channel, Ellie Dreams Down Under, that you've sort of been looking into the lives of some particular people who've been around for a while, but have sort of emerged back, come to the fore somehow. At least in your research, for sure. And I'm starting, now that you've brought things up to me, I'm starting to see it more and more. Other YouTubers and other researchers are now looking into this. But it's really kind of interesting. Could you just give us just a little, thumbnail sketch of what it is that you're looking into?
Yeah, well, I have to give credit to one of my viewers and subscribers on Ellie Dreams Down Under, because that's where this came from. I had no knowledge whatsoever of this fellow until then. I actually received, I think it was a comment or an email from one of my regulars saying, "Have you seen this?" with a link. Well, I get lots of messages like that about all different types of subjects. And I always click because I think if it's going to be something that viewers are going to like, links are disabled on my channel, but I can override that. And so I kind of go in and I have a look and I think, yeah, this actually kind of is in keeping with the channel's ethos and everything. So let's, I went in and I was absolutely flabbergasted that I didn't know about this before. It was about a guy who was being interviewed. His name is Marshall Vian Summers. And he's been around for about 40 years. Back in the 80s, this kind of kicked off for him. And he's been talking about it ever since. He he was being interviewed, it turns out, by his son for their, they have a podcast or they have a ministry actually, but a little bit different. And there's lots of information. He apparently, back in the 80s, had a visitation from a celestial presence or an angelic presence that told him some information that is so in contrast with what we generally understand when it comes to sentient beings from other planets and their potential motives and what could be happening around us, that it caught my interest. And I was recovering from surgery. I've had surgery a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I think today is day 15 since the
Yeah, I
surgery,
saw you walking around a minute ago
with my little
without
walking stick.
aid. Yeah.
With my walking stick, which I'm starting to outgrow the walking stick. I notice sometimes, especially in the kitchen, I leave it places, which is a really good sign.
That's a good sign.
But I had a bit of downtime where I really had time to sort of scratch the surface. And oh my gosh, this guy and the messaging has totally blown my mind. And I don't know why there isn't a massive debate taking place with regards to the things that he's been publishing and saying and reporting. He has an entire international ministry, which is not religious. But it invites all kinds of different belief systems to focus on a central threat that he believes is the singular most important threat for humanity right now. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to just start talking about this guy and see what happens.
So basically, you know, I don't want to oversimplify, but in a nutshell, he's saying that we are experiencing some sort of alien intervention into society, that they're here, and that the ones that are here are not here for us. They're not here to help us. While they might stop us from blowing ourselves up in a nuclear way, that's not for us. That's to preserve the planet for their needs, because we are, a rich planet in terms of all kinds of things that are needed throughout the universe. And they're probably coming from places that aren't quite so lush and wonderful, and they need what we have. But he's in touch with a group or a presence that is not here, but is
That's
in
right.
contact with him, and they are letting him know and warning us that these guys, that are here can't be trusted, and there are things that we can do to not be as vulnerable, because that's
Exactly.
got to be the end answer. We can't just have this takeover coming and there's nothing we can do about it. It's like there's got to be things that we can do. But so I got something from a personal nature. When I in another life, back in the 90s, I studied hypnotherapy. And the reason I did that was because I was really intrigued by this alien abduction phenomena. And later I decided that wasn't the way to go, but I did get involved. I founded a group with a couple of other people called CERO, Close Encounter Research Organization, and that group still exists today. And we had a monthly sort of support meeting for people who were having these experiences or felt that they were. And my whole life, since I was a little girl, I had this dream that I called the end of the world dream. And
I think you've mentioned this to
I
me,
think
but
I
I
told
don't
you
remember.
before.
Yeah, go on, tell
And
us.
my
Tell
end
us.
of the world dream I would have it repeatedly, throughout the years. I would be standing outside, and in the sky, there was just armada of spaceships in different formations, different things. And one thing I remember very well was there was one that was projecting images on the side like a flying screen, like the Goodyear blimp might do,
Yep.
and it was cartoons. And I later on, I thought, I wonder if they're doing that to sort of say, hey, look, we're friendly, we're funny, we're showing you kids cartoons, you know, and thinking that might, make them seem more friendly or something. But interestingly, I don't even know what made me do it, but when I was running this group, um, I would always, anytime we'd get a new member, I would ask them simply, do you have an end of the world dream? And I cannot tell you how many people had that same dream. I mean, they might not have been in the same location. Like I had one lady who was out by the ocean and she was watching them come in, you know, but it was always the same with the ships just coming and coming. Like the sky was full. And then later, I realized this is not the end of the world. This is the end of the world as we know it.
As we know it.
And
This
okay,
is,
so that was one thing. Okay.
yeah,
And
no,
I'm
that
being
that
very,
that
you are
actually
my guest.
sounds really like connected to the things that I've been finding in my research. Yeah.
It's really strange. It's really strange. Okay, and then one other thing. People that watch my show or listen to my show may be familiar with a movie that I produced called Bloodline. In it, we were investigating whether there was a bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and was there really this secret society called the Priory of Zion, which was protecting these secrets. And so we went out and we did a 5-year investigation. Well, we met this guy who we were convinced was a member of the Priory of Zion. And I remember one day I was back in LA, but my crew was over in the UK, and they were doing an interview with him. And they came back so troubled
He
and
was a
so
creepy guy.
freaked out
He's a
because
creepy
this,
guy.
pardon?
He's a creepy guy. He gave me the creeps when I was watching Bloodline.
That's
He
right.
did.
Nicholas Haywood was his name. But
Yeah.
he told them that there was a coming event that was going to change everything. And I remember my business partner, Bruce, asked him, in my lifetime? And he said, yes. And so, and the reason that I thought about that in this context is because in a meeting that we had with Nick Haywood, he said that it was the sort of raison d'etre or the mandate or whatever of the Priory of Zion to unite the world in spirituality, in other words, not religion, but spirituality. And that kind of reminds me of sort of what's going on with Marshall V. Summers. Like you said, his organization is not a church, it's not a
No.
religious doctrine or a religious affiliate of some kind. It's its own thing, and it
It's
doesn't
like
matter what your
it's
belief
like a
system is.
it's like a spiritual community almost with a missionary kind of purpose to be able to
Yes.
spread the word. People come from different beliefs. Some are religious, some are non-religious. They may be atheist in nature, but they congregate together with the same understanding and belief in the principle that humanity is vulnerable for as long as it's not united. And it we need to learn to actually overcome our differences because our strength is in our unity. And it's on the principle of, whenever we see pictures of Mars and the moon, and we don't really know much about anywhere other than Mars because we haven't been able to see up close on a lot of planets. But the barrenness of Mars, for example, is typical. Apparently, the allies of humanity is the angelic presence that Marshall has coined the phrase "allies of humanity" to describe them. And they say that generally the planets in the cosmos are almost entirely barren because the sophisticated technology and advanced civilizations that have been living on those planets have utilized, the more sophisticated you become, the more resources you consume. And so if you become super sophisticated and technologically advanced, then you're really sucking up all of the lifeblood of your planet, but you need to continue to exist. And so there are actually a number of different species of extraterrestrial from various different galaxies and planets that are looking for a new way to survive. And they are very aware of Earth because we are operating in one of the lushest, most delicious environments that exist. But we're also quite infantile in our development. And so we're actually projecting our we're broadcasting quite naively out into the ether, which means everyone knows we exist.
It's like
And
we're wearing a big "kick me" sign,
everyone is vying for what we've got because we've got those resources, but also we have the infrastructure as well to harness those resources, and we have the workforce that can be harnessed.
That reminds me of the dream that you had regarding, I think you just told it in the show, but
uncanny.
You had a dream where someone said to you they don't have to build, and you're like, what is that all about?
In my dream, I was chasing
an
alien around. And all I could see was the back of their head. And they had almost like a 1960s bob haircut. You can imagine like one of the monkeys would have been, or, the early Beatles. Yeah. Kind of, and all I could see was the back of their head, but I knew that they were an alien. And I was chasing them around like a member of the paparazzi, trying to get their attention. And they turned around.
Did you know what you were trying to get their attention for?
They turned around and I never saw their face, but I know that, I remember seeing the action of them turning around. And then they said to me, they don't need to build. And then I woke up. And, because I have all kinds of dreams. That's why I'm Ellie Dreams and Under. But I have all kinds of dreams. And this was one of the ones where I'm thinking, oh, well, that was interesting. What was that about? It was actually that next day, after waking up that day, that my viewer sent through this interview of Marshall V.N. Summers. And so I went to, I really enjoyed the interview because it was very intelligent. I couldn't find anything wrong with what he was saying. He was very understated in his delivery. Him and his son had a very intelligent conversation. And I thought, well, actually, this is interesting. And so I went and I found another interview with some other person, which I think I sent you, the guy who talks a lot for about 10 minutes. Yeah.
I did see that. Yeah. It was interesting.
And once he let Marshall start talking, Marshall was fascinating and took me down a little rabbit hole because, that's fun. And one of the things that he said was that these allies of humanity that are warning him said, one of the things that makes us so attractive is we are a ready-made workforce. We've got this beautiful planet. We've got an infrastructure that they don't have to build. And we have a workforce of slaves all ready to do the work for them. And so that when I heard that the day after I'd had the dream, it really got my attention. But he does. One of the things you mentioned, which is true, he's got about 10,000 pages of transcript message that he's been receiving for the past 40 years I actually
And that's
go
all
through.
online and free to read, right?
It's all open source, free, and he presents it almost as though it's um, a brand new scripture for a brand new age. And that got my attention as well, because, I've been, all the research I've been doing for the Human Ascension with Ellie show, it's becoming increasingly sort of, it's increasingly sort of scratching at me that we seem to be reaching the end of that 2,000 years of relevant to the current biblical scripture,
Hmm.
the current story that is understood to be that acceptable story of our creation and life and existence and reality, which is the Bible and the Quran and the Torah and all of that. And is it time for something new? Are we entering into a new age? Is there going to be a re-explanation or a reinterpretation? On the show, I've gone through the various different ages and the different sun gods that existed and how they were translated. And the current Bible depiction of Jesus, I know this is going to sound really sacrilegious for those who believe, but it's sort of one of the phases that is similar to, but different to the previous phases of understanding of our existence that happened in previous ages. And I wonder whether this is the beginning of something new. I don't know whether I believe Marshall V.N. Summers or not, but I feel pretty confident that he believes. And
Hmm.
I also think it's very genuine. And I can't find anything wrong with his message yet. And I've been trying to find something. I've been trying to find something wrong.
Didn't you say
He's
he's
just,
located in California?
I think last known location, I think, was Berkeley in California, which is where he was born as well.
I'd love to go up and meet him in person, and just see how he feels to me. Not that I'm any great judge of anything, but it would be interesting to
Yeah.
see him in person, wouldn't it? But
Yeah. And yeah.
but so he's very very low key and very humble, and he's not trying to get followers for himself, right?
No,
Because
it's
that's always
very,
a big red flag when somebody starts getting held up as like the only one. But
he is the way that the ministry is called. I want to make sure I get this right. I think it's called the Society for, hang on, let me get this right because I don't want to get it wrong. It's the worldwide community of the new message of God. No, sorry, the worldwide community of the new message from God. That is the name of his, you could call it a ministry. And he is the head of that ministry. However, he doesn't present himself as being particularly special. He's a man. His followers, a large percentage of them consider him to be a prophet of a similar stature to Muhammad or Jesus or, and or Buddha, because of the fact that the things he has to say are so profound. But he lives quite a modest life. His family live a very modest life. And he used to be a teacher for blind children. And he actually explains his past and how he thinks this messaging developed. He went to university, he became a teacher, he was teaching blind students which to communicate and to integrate. And one of the skills that he had to have as a teacher was to sort of have this intuitive sense of how to get the best out of this child and how to be, a part of, to be close to them and a friend and things and understand the challenges that they have. And he said that he began to develop, an inner sense of guidance as a result of that. And he harnessed it and embraced it and would go and meditate out, in natural environments and things. And so he would sometimes go on long walks and hikes and out in, in I think it's the southwest regions in the wilderness. And it was sometimes when he was out there doing his, in Australia, the Aborigines call it walkabout, just going out there and being grounded with nature. He said he just started to develop this messaging that felt as though it was coming from somewhere else. And so he started recording it, and he just kept recording it, and it kept coming. And it includes the dilemma, but it also includes the solution. But the solution is something that has to be embraced by humanity in order for it to work. And generally, if we continue to be divided, then we are vulnerable to an invasion, is the message. And the invasion is one of manipulation, where we're almost going to open the door and invite a hostile element onto Earth who is intending to harness us as a workforce for their own benefit. And we just don't know because they're smarter than we are.
Yeah.
And so they're manipulating us. It's a fascinating concept, if nothing else.
It is. And, I have to apologize. I don't know if you guys hear my dogs, but we were so worried about Lolo, about Ellie's dog, and it ended up being mine. I think my one of my kids just got home, so they're all excited. But anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, the idea of this divisiveness, being part of their agenda, that it seems like they might be working through, places of power, places of authority, organizations that have great influence, governments and churches and things like that. And I mean, again, I'm always run the risk of offending someone, and I don't mean to, but there is this thing that's been going on in the Christian evangelical movement where people are, like sort of praising violence and, talking about guns in church and, just, and hating someone that doesn't think like they do and that sort of thing. It's almost like, is that part of the plan?
Well, the way that Marshall describes it is the allies have said to him that we're relatively advanced as a species. But however, we're nowhere. We're not even a dot on the same, massive map of everything else.
Yeah.
And so those sentient beings from other planets that have their eye on our resources are so much more advanced than us. And they are so advanced, why on earth would they come in guns blazing? Why not just infiltrate us by planting a seed here and planting a seed there? And I actually, on the show, cross-referenced to something that Paul Hellyer said, the former
defense minister of Canada,
Canadian minister and ufologist in his later life.
Yeah.
He said prior to his death, and that is he was recounting how President Eisenhower is reported to have been to have had a direct interaction with an alien or aliens, and he had been offered this opportunity to live a really good life with all kinds of promises of technology and agricultural advancements and just a cushy life himself, if he were to promise that the world's nuclear weapons would be eliminated. Now that sounds almost the same as what Marshall Van Summers is saying, where there's a bargaining taking place. It could be that people are being paid off in strange ways by having circumstances turn in their favor. Or it could be that people are being manipulated into propagandizing something that they believe is true. Because we're talking about ETs that are far more sophisticated than us, and they've been monitoring us They don't know how we feel because they don't have the same sense of compassion and um, sense of love and relationships and things that we have. But they've been observing our responses. They know, like clockwork, how we're going to react to things in a physical sense and in our decision making. They just don't understand what's deeper. And he said that's one of the most dangerous things about them, is that they don't understand that part of us that includes kindness and sweetness and love and loyalty and things like that. What they understand is that if they do this, we are likely to do that. And
Right.
that they need us to preserve our resources because they consider that those resources are going to be theirs one day. And so we're not allowed to blow things up. That's the reason why there's a connection made here where whenever there's the threat of nuclear conflict, say most recently that I'm aware of, the conflict with the invasion of Ukraine in Russia, somewhere in the midpoint of the 2 years of that conflict, there have been reports of mass sightings of these unexplained phenomena in the sky in areas of above Moscow and also above different cities and towns in Ukraine. And people have been saying, well, this looks like a UFO or UAP kind of phenomena taking place. And it's generally been at a time when the rhetoric is really heightened and people are starting to talk about how, this is going to, if we have to kill you all, if we have to
Yeah.
destroy the entire country. What Marshall says is that one of the things that we've seen traditionally over many years that we've had this atomic power is that the cosmos is a whole thing. And if we set off something devastating, it doesn't just devastate Earth. It has a reverberating effect that goes out into the cosmos. But also we would be destroying the resources that are so precious to these ETs. And so the way that he describes it is, we believe, many of us, that they're here potentially to save us. And that's because they have manipulated us into losing faith in our sense, our structures of governance and our way of life and the rules that we live by, so that we will want something else. However, their intention is not to do any good for us. They don't care about us at all, but they want to preserve the earth because they need the earth. And that's the reason why they seem to come out whenever there's a threat against the earth. They don't care if we blow each other up.
And I'm wondering if
scary.
I don't know. I'm trying to tie it to every single thing. It's not that I'm trying to, it's just everything keeps, popping up in my head. What could be related to this? Excuse me. But the one thing that I thought of when you were talking about the nuclear armament aspect of it was, the Rendlesham Forest incident in the UK back in the 80s, where at the air base there, the American air base there in the UK, where they had this big incident with a UFO in the forest, and there's plenty to learn about it still. These guys, obviously they're still alive because that just happened in the 80s, where they were downloaded with information and all this stuff. And it was a nuclear storage place there, and all the missiles were disabled.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember you said something about they're not going to let us blow ourselves up, and that totally reminded me of that incident, that they definitely, and I've heard that about other locations where they've disabled the nuclear equipment or the nuclear bombs and things. I wish they'd just go around and disable all of them, but then leave.
Well, apparently we do now. This is And I have to actually state that, I don't know what I believe when it comes to the information that Marshall V. N. Summers has been putting forward. In tonight's episode, I did read verbatim the very first message from the very first volume of his scripture, in a way, which is a word for word transcript of the message that he's received, and it's actually beautifully written, and it's not short, but it's concise, and you really understand what the message is when you hear it. But there's 10,000 pages more, which I haven't even gotten into. And this was the first time I'd been reading it when I read it out loud for the show as well, because I wanted to feel what viewers or listeners would be feeling as well.
Right.
But the concept is basically that there are two different types of beings that are involved here. You've got your physical extraterrestrials that are living on Earth already. So they live in the oceans, they live in the mountains, they live in the sky. There are
But are there any just living among us?
Yes, there is a hybrid program. That's part of what has been happening over the past 1,000 or so years, because the ETs have destroyed their own environments. They can't live physically on Earth in their original, I guess you could say biological, if that is an appropriate term, state. They can't survive. So what they've been doing is they have been, with agreement from governments, abducting a certain percentage of the population and creating a hybrid race that allows them to slowly integrate into society. And so he says that, yes, there are hybrid beings that are part human and part extraterrestrial, who are living here on Earth, and they have been increasing in number over the past few hundred years. But he also says that of this physical extraterrestrial element, none of them are on our side. None of them. They are all here vying for resources, and they're part of a greater collective. He says that on the other side, the allies of humanity, which is the collective voice or the collective element that he is communicating with, they're not a physical extraterrestrial presence. They are angels representing our creator. So they are an ethereal, holographic type of presence that come from within and embody, our spiritual connection to our creator. So almost not it's not religion based, but it's a spiritual thing. They have never been to Earth. They've actually stated they've never been to Earth. They have no intention of ever coming to Earth, but they want humanity to survive, and they want humanity to join the collective, like all of the other extraterrestrials or other worldly beings. However, not like this. They want us to do it with advancement and with awareness of what we're getting into, because there are rules of engagement in the cosmos, and there's a constitution in place. And we're completely unaware of the fact that the constitution is being manipulated, almost like a lawyer would manipulate the evidence in order to get their outcome. We are being manipulated in accordance with what is permissible between planets, and we're completely unaware because we haven't integrated yet, so we don't know what's happening to us.
It reminds me of that saying, as above, so below. They're doing stuff up there with their constitutions. Things are going on down here that, sort of threaten our constitution. And
I have to tell you something, which I've got to admit this. I went in and I had some major surgery 2 weeks ago. And as part of that, for the first, week and a half or so after the surgery, I was on some very strong controlled substances, right? Issued by hospital issue, right? Hospital issue. Yep. And one of the side effects, I got a little pamphlet warning me that one of the side effects was delirium and psychedelic dreams. And so you can just imagine me being thrown down this rabbit hole just before I go into hospital. I'm reading about all of this stuff. I'm recovering, and this is my primary obsession while I'm recovering from my surgery, and I'm taking psychedelic drugs.
Oh my
So
gosh.
my mind has been thoroughly blown. I'm not on the drugs anymore. I'm not even on the paracetamol anymore. I'm just on coffee, and that's it.
Paracetamol for the American viewers is, an over-the-counter pain reliever. It's really good. I don't know why we don't
It
have it here. I mean, I
is.
think I have looked it up. I think you can order it online. But anyway, I didn't even know what it was until about a year ago when I took some when I was over in Europe. But the other thing, and I mean, I hate to bring this up, but again, it's like these are the things that occur to me as I learn more about what Marshall is saying, and and about this, this whole overarching plan. Um, if they want to build a slave race, or if they want to, take us on as a slave race, then wouldn't it be to their advantage? This sounds so stupid, but to overturn Roe v. Wade, so that, and then, now we've got these challenges to even birth control here in America. Could that be part and parcel of this plan? Because they want to grow more slave labor. They don't want to.
Well, the thing is, if they're creating a hybrid race, um, I don't know. Actually, this does sort of link to another thing. One of the things that I can't quite forget about the connection between what we're hearing out there, just in the general population, and what Marshall Van Suber says is there's a connection made here about this abduction experience and how experiences who feel that they have been abducted and tested and maybe even inseminated or something, they all seem to have a fearful um, memory of being brutalized and disregarded on a psychological level by a being that doesn't seem to have compassion, that is almost machine like, or part, they could be part technological and part biological. And that could very well be the intention. I don't know. But it also kind of matches the idea of them not really being our friends.
Mm,
Because when you meet up with a celestial being of an angelic nature, you feel love, you
right.
feel supported, and they often come with a warning about the other guys that don't have the compassion. And so it's so hard. I'm just wondering, where has he been for 40 years? And people just, they should at least be, if they don't agree, arguing with him or something. But
Yeah, at least
he's still
examining the
hearing.
information and tossing it around. Yeah, that's what I like to do. I mean, every now and then I sometimes say to myself, "Am I just crazy? Could any of this stuff be really real?" But again, as I said, in some ways, um, if you just ditch all the programming that we've had, it almost makes more sense that there are others. Why wouldn't there be others out there?
Yeah.
And if they are, then they are from much older planets and solar systems. We're very young in terms of the cosmos here, so that stands to reason that they would be more advanced and able to figure out this travel thing to Earth and back, even though we haven't completely mastered it ourselves. So it all kind of, in a way, if you really think about it, just objectively, it's not so outlandish if you accept the
No.
fact that we're probably not the only intelligent beings in the in this in the universe. Uh, And I mean, I just don't see why we would be. Why would there, on this one little planet, why would it be we're the only ones that develop sentient life? I just don't see it.
There is, it's referred to as the greater collective, and the greater collective is the entire collective of all of the different um, inhabitants of all the different planets in all the different in the cosmos and beyond. And the way that it's been described by Marshall Van Summers is that there are many, and there is a constitution in place that enlists the create that actually states the rules for engagement, and you cannot conduct a hostile takeover of another planet, just as we will never successfully be able to inhabit another planet. It doesn't matter how much money we throw at it and what we try to do, we will be prevented from doing that because we're not permitted to settle elsewhere. The only thing that you can override that with is if you're invited in.
Mm.
And so we're probably, it's not that we're not the only intelligent species out there. We probably are the ones that aren't that intelligent compared to those that are far more advanced. And so it's like that saying, when the devil knocks, don't let him in, because once he's in, he's in. And that's
Right.
the warning. But the good news is, if we're terrifying people late at night here on the show, the good news is, sorry to anyone
Sweet
who's
dreams, everybody.
the good news
Terrible.
is this is not just a doom and gloom. I have seen comments from people in interview, like if he does an interview on YouTube or something, some comments saying that he's the king of doom and gloom. He's not, because they haven't stopped to look deep enough.
Yeah.
And there is the allies of humanity also offer the solution.
Yes.
And the solution is very simple, and that is that we need to put down our childish behavior and our little weapons of war, and we need to talk to each other and begin to, and this goes all the way to the top, all the different countries even have to be able to realize that we need to unite. But he does say that that there is about to be an intervention. It is coming very, very soon. It's coming in our lifetimes, and it may even be in less than a decade. And a lot of people are saying that something is coming. I've seen that universally. But he says it's definitely coming, but it's not. We're not being rescued. It's an intervention, and we need to be united in order to resist it. And he said that there are other planets out there that have been in the same shoes as us, that have succeeded in being united and maintaining their sovereignty. But there are also planets that have failed.
Now, what did he say about the divisiveness that we're experiencing here? Is that he does feel that's generated, or at least facilitated by this alien takeover force that we're staring down?
Yeah,
So,
it's sort of a multi-pronged kind of strategy where there's just enough. Just they expose themselves just enough so that they can't be denied. People are not going to. They exist because we do see things here and there. I've got family members, I've got friends who've seen spacecraft and lights in the sky and things like that. So I know examples. They also infiltrate by manipulating our behaviors because they know how we're going to react to things. So they plant things to react so that we'll react in a very predictable way. And that means they can escalate tensions. They also kind of encourage or manipulate people to create more tension. So, some of these talking heads that we listen to, whether it be a religious leader or a politician or a talk show host or whatever it is, the harsh rhetoric that gets us hating other people and excited all the time is deliberate, because for as long as we are at war with each other, we're vulnerable.
yeah.
If we calm down and realize that we're actually all in it together, then they wouldn't actually have an in, because we would be a united front.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good reason to cut out all the BS that we're doing to each other, isn't it? And I mean, we're, you know, whether you feel like your side is right or your view is right or not, we're all a little guilty of that. We do sort of choose up sides and paint people with the same brush that might not completely agree with us. So I think we've got to start letting people in that may not think the same way we do. Otherwise, it's just I don't see how it's ever going to resolve. Because we certainly I don't know. I mean, I can remember my grandmother. You know, when I was a kid, we used to laugh. Behind her back, and she'd always say, "Oh, I don't know how much longer this old world's going to last." And this everything was so awful, and people are so terrible, and everything. And then here we are, all this way. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe I'm saying to my kids, oh, I don't know how long this whole world's going to last. Uh, but it does seem like there is something. There is something, and it would be really nice to be able to settle in our minds, what it is that's going on and what we need to do about it, and just do it.
Yeah. I actually think that it's not necessary for us to all be holding hands and singing Kumbaya out in the field
No,
together.
yeah,
I think that it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to have different principles and different points of view. I think that when we get to the point where we are being childish, we're being, just because you're carrying an AK-47 doesn't mean you're being childish.
right.
If you're going to, there are things that can be resolved without the weaponry and without the arguing and the tension and the hatred and the name calling and the division and
Yeah, that's
you
it.
know, and
Being decent
it's
to
really
each other.
hard to do. And just like this intergalactic kind of constitution prevents you from doing a hostile takeover on another planet, you don't have to like the other planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And we can probably be the same. At the moment, we've got such heightened sense of me, and my truth, and what's important to me and my family at the expense of the other family, and it is very childish and it is very selfish, and that's what we need to minimize. But we also need to get straight in our minds that we're human. This is our humanity, and it's our planet, and we own it, and we're not going to give it away. But
yeah,
we collectively own it, all of us. Yeah.
right. You know, it sort of takes me back, to the Sitchin material, and because that's sort of what it was about, was that they were coming here to mine for gold and our minerals, things that they needed, um, and then of course they, intermingled with the humans, but they were creating a race of workers.
Yeah.
So I mean, has it been going on that long?
Now I don't know. I can't recall having
You're
seen.
talking about
I mean,
like ancient Sumeria, ancient Mesopotamia, you know, those are the
I know
times.
that I've seen that it's been going on for hundreds of years. Whether it's been going on for thousands or tens of thousands of years, I mean, how long does it take to hybridize? Is that a word? To hybridize your existence so that the generation will finally be able to reside on a planet that's unfamiliar to you and your biological makeup. So does that take 100 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years?
And are we already products of that intervention that, are we, is part of our DNA alien.
Yes, of course. And that's a valid question. Just one example of that. Why is it that we are the only species, generally, I mean, there are small exceptions like a dog's pink nose, for example, that get sunburnt. Oh, my dog's getting ready.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
I had my sign ready. Back in a second.
That's great. All right. Well, I'm just going to get rid of my dog off my lap. I tell you, this is dog day. I don't know if you guys heard, but my dogs were barking earlier. It's really funny. But anyhow, yeah, this information is really interesting. And like Ellie, I don't know if I believe it or not, but it certainly bears looking into and a little further study. And some of it definitely sort of rings true. I like the idea of this gentleman, Marshall Van Summers, not being out there yelling from the rooftops, that he's just been providing this information quietly and not trying to get rich from it or become a big star or a celebrity from it. That helps me to maybe consider more seriously some of the information that we're looking at. But in some ways, it does kind of make sense that there would be visitors coming here and that they would be more advanced than we are because they come from much older worlds. So they've had time to develop more technology and everything else. But like Ellie was saying, I think one of the things um, that they sort of, I wouldn't say admire, but they marvel at with us is our ability to care, our kindness, and our willingness to even sometimes give up our lives for someone else, especially a loved one. I think they don't understand that, but they do, as Ellie said, they kind of know how we'll react to certain things. There she is.
Oh,
But we've just gone over time. I just stayed on to
oh.
say goodbye.
Well,
But
and
anyway,
while I'm in
everybody
recovery, I've got a dog walker.
check out Ellie if you haven't already. I have a feeling a lot of you are only here because of Ellie. So I'm probably talking to the wind here. But anyway, you guys check out Ellie's show on KGRA called Human Ascension with Ellie. And I also like her YouTube channel, Ellie Dreams Down Under, where she does
And
tarot. And
yesterday's episode on Ellie Dreams Down Under was actually a tarot reading about Marshall Van Summers himself, looking at whether or not he's genuine and what he
yes,
believed. And it actually had a really striking result.
all right. Well, I see right now I have failed to plug in my computer, and my battery is almost dead, so it looks like a good time to
Time to go.
That's crazy. Thank you so much, Ellie. We got to do this again. I hope I can twist your arm into doing this, on a recurring basis. That would be fun.
Great to see you.
All right. Good to see you too. Take care,
Bye.
everyone. Good night.